Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Next speaker.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. My name is Marion Bay. I live at 30 Underwood Street in Newark. And I'd like to ask one quick question, and hopefully you guys will answer it for me. How many of you sit on charter school boards? Because tonight you're going to be voting, is that correct? Nobody should. So if anyone is sitting on a board or work for a charter school, they should recuse themselves, because that will be a conflict of interest. So when you decide to vote, please let us know if you are a board member, a founder, whatever it is, because you should not be able to vote. You should not be able to vote. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that when I'm listening to all this stuff that's been going on with our children, and it kind of reminds me of the policies of back in the 40s and 50s, the Jim Crow policies, because what you're doing is segregating our children. Most people will come up here saying that we don't have a problem with charter schools and public schools per se. What we have a problem with, for myself, is how the charter schools are being funded by taking money away from public schools. Okay? I got a problem with that. But we all, as parents, want our children to be educated. And that's what we're talking about here. And what you guys, well, I shouldn't say you guys, I should say what you are doing, Ms. Anderson, Cammie, is really hurting our children. I know you got your orders from Booker and from Surf and for all of them to do what you're doing. I understand that. But you are a mother. So you should understand, as parents, what this is doing to our children, the psychological damage that you're doing to our children. And you need to think about it. Now, finally, I want to say, since we have council members here, when we're talking about the bonds floating, the school district cannot float bonds. Is that correct? Now, we have to, I'm a homeowner and a taxpayer. Okay, so we have to fund you. So since Newark taxpayers has to pay taxes to you, can we stop paying taxes to them? Because with all these corporations that are coming in, if they were to fit their budget to the deficit, then they could really start charging the money per square foot in order to correct the deficit. So therefore, the money from Newark taxpayers, we shouldn't have to pay that. I really got a serious problem with that, because you're asking us to pay for this, and we don't agree with it. So we should not have to pay for it. So when you guys get ready to vote, those of you that have anything to do with any charter school, please identify that and please recuse yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bay. Next speaker.
First of all, before I get started, I want to speak directly to the chair. I'd like to apologize to the chair and to Mr. Kinney, the last advisory board meeting. I got a little boisterous with you guys, and I do have respect for y'all, and so I just publicly want to apologize for that.
Thank you.
Now, getting with the business, you are, oh, thank you. Denise Crawford, thank you, Val, 102 Prince Street, a Newark Public School graduate. I want to really say that lately I've been getting a little hyped. Val reminded me of that, and the other Val. But this is the advisory board. I know that they keep saying you don't have power. Well, guess what? All power is left with God. Okay? I want you to know this is about our children. And this vote is important tonight. I want to echo what the young lady said. I sit on boards when it is a conflict of interest. Be strong, be right, do the right thing. If you do not suppose to vote because it is a conflict of interest, please do not do that. And I already know someone is not going to do that, and I thank you for being the right type of person. Ms. Anderson, you are our superintendent, whether we don't like it or not, but you are our superintendent, and that means you are our superintendent. You're nobody else's superintendent. I don't need for anybody to tell me whether you're good or bad, because it is Newark Public Schools who decides that. I don't even care about the governor right at this point. But Val, I respect you, but the issue tonight was that that young, nice gentleman over there, the lawyer, he keeps telling us about the rules and the regulations, and if we're gonna follow the rules and regulations, everybody, let's follow those rules and regulations. No one should be getting up, talking out of order, cursing, or anything else. That is why Denise Crawford gets upset, and then I say something out of order. If you don't know it before you get here, then nobody else should be telling you. I thank you, I respect you, and let's get on with the vote and make the right decision for who? Newark Public Schools. Children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford.
Good evening, Madam Chair, to the board, Superintendent. My name is Wilhelmina Holder, 204 Eastern Parkway, Newark, New Jersey. I have one thing only: all children should be the only declared winners. And tonight, what I heard, that's not happening unless, and I believe in God, that you will do the right thing. First, I'd like to say, well, as Junior said, I called too, QZAP. The funding is grants, and it is available to public schools. And they did not understand why we didn't get any of that money to maintain 18th Avenue building and also STEM academies. The monies also could have been used for science laboratories. Believe me, I wouldn't let them off the phone. Okay? So when you said, Superintendent, that that money was not for district schools, that was a flat out lie or a misunderstanding. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt in case you don't know, but it was a lie. The other issue is that when you came here, you told certain individuals, including myself, that you would stand strong and hold tight up to Commissioner Cerf, to Cory Booker, and to Governor Christie if you needed to, if you thought that they were going in the wrong direction for our children. And so far, I have not seen that willpower at all. So was it rhetoric just to get the job? The other issue is that these leases are a crime against Newark. I'm a graduate of Weequahic High School, as well as my 5 brothers and sisters. My children are graduates of Westside High. My grandchildren are in traditional public schools after one daughter took her out of a charter school because it was not responsive to my grandson. So what am I saying? If most of the children are in the traditional public school arena, that's where the resources should be invested and not disinvested so that our traditional school system is left to compete with nothing. And I don't think anyone should get a 10-year lease. Team Academy does not deserve a 30-year lease, a 10-year lease. They deserve a short-term lease like everybody else, no more than 2 years with a 1-year renewal. Because if you look at what's happening in Newark, there is growth. And if you had done this thing right, you would have had a great realignment so that 18th Avenue could have got some SDA funds with the QZAB funds. And we have children in the North Ward that can't access kindergarten, the East Ward that can't access kindergarten, preschool. We have children who can't access preschools. If you had done a great realignment in some of these buildings, they would be fully utilized and not underutilized. But that wasn't the goal, was it? The goal was not to support the children that need the most support. So I'm asking all of the board members, whether you are a parent or not a parent, whether you have children sitting in those schools or not, I need you to do the right thing tonight, because it is my future, my grandchildren, my legacy that's on the line. And I'm not going to let any of you forget it if you vote the wrong way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holder. Next speaker.
Good evening, Advisory Board. My name is Linda Pollard. I live at 1 Honest Place, Newark, New Jersey. I have attended every Advisory Board meeting this spring as a proud public chartered school parent. Tonight I am here because I want to help make it clear that these families, just like me, want space so that our children can learn. As we know, there are many families waiting to get space in unutilized schools, which is totally unfair. We cannot do this unless you guys vote in our favor this evening. I know many of these families, and I know that they have entered their children into the lotteries. Like many of you don't believe that our children got in through a lottery, but they have. Because we have been wasting time in our children's education. I have 2 children in chartered school, and Mr. Lewis, let me let you know, one of my children has special needs and does very well in a chartered setting. They have given her every resource and have not asked me once to remove her because she was not at grade level or could not read at the grade level their school was at. As a matter of fact, they kept her at school longer hours to get her where she needed to be. So your theory is totally wrong. I implore this advisory board this evening to vote to improve our education system in Newark, and by improving the leases before you. Doing so, we need to have this done, ensuring that our children succeed no matter what type of school they're in. I am not for charter because I have 1 child in the public school. I just think children need the education. They need to learn. It is unfair that we always pit charter against public. I'm tired of it. These are our kids and they need to learn. Give us the spaces we need to teach our kids. It's not like they're being utilized. Also, everybody keeps saying that chartered schools are taking funds. Chartered schools are nonprofit. This is totally ridiculous. Please do not fail our children, because by not voting in favor of these leases for the schools, you are failing our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pollard. Next speaker.
Deborah Gregory, 800 South 11th Street. The current administration is breeding the fear that you feel in this room and the outrage. And the whole notion of our students failing so dismally is not accurate. There had been incremental growth for our young people. And when we constantly talk about the failing schools, it is, as Ms. Owen said, a circular reasoning where the public schools are being dismissed as the schools that don't teach, and there are some very great teachers in those schools. This district is in a disarray, and it is by design, and I would hope that the advisory board be right-minded when you vote. Questions. What happens to the charters? What happens if the charter schools don't fill the space leased to them? I think that was answered, that they had room for growth. Question. With 90 days left until school begins, these capital expenditures that were talked about, where is the money coming from to renovate these schools in the next 90 days based on the capital expenditures? What about leasing in an already vacant building like William Brown Academy, which most likely has the same high cost of renovation as, say, 18th Avenue? And Morton Street, which is a school that is very close to me, and I know that that school has been kept in excellent condition, and there's a minimum amount of, as you say, capital expenditures that need to be done. That school, possibly as a compromise, could be used as the school to co-locate all of the charters, because all of these charters are under-enrolled. You're talking about the charters have X amount that they're anticipating, but they're projecting X amount. So put them all, collate all of the charters in a building. You could take Eagle Academy and put it in those buildings, and all of those schools where they're branching out. Pull them all together, since they are under-enrolled as we speak, and let the Newark Public Schools get some of the resources. My question also, how were the seats in the rooms counted? Was that, or undercounted when you say the seats? Were the boiler rooms counted as classrooms? Were the closets counted as classrooms? Because I do think that some of them were. We need to be very right-minded. We need to be honest. I've been coming to these school board meetings, and the level of distrust is coming from the administration. The community is crying out to say, hear us and allow us input. And that consistently has not been the case for the last 3 meetings. Parents have been locked out. There's a news blackout. You can't get anything in the newspaper. You can't get anything. So it's only what this current administration is pushing forth, which is distrust, dishonesty, and a spirit of meanness toward our children. All of our children deserve better.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. Next speaker.
Good evening, all. All protocols duly observed. My name is Adora Madabuko. I live at 550 South 19th Street, Newark, New Jersey. I stand here this night because I'm a proud parent of a Newark public charter school. My son attends a public charter school, and this has directed his path to college and teaches him just how to work hard, develop the core values he needs to excel. Prior to attending kindergarten, as most people do not believe, he was a special needs kid. He also had an IEP, and he was diagnosed with ADHD, and he was admitted into a charter school. Right now, my child is excelling. He's not perfect. We're still working on him, and he's never been sent out of school. The teachers have held the hands of my family, guiding us along the way. And at each point in time, they've made themselves available to us, making sure that my child has everything he needs to excel in life. I understand there are a lot of parents in Newark that are in need of this particular guidance, that need this kind of encouraging environment for their child to flourish. It might not be for every child, but there are parents who have that choice, who have that right to make that choice, to follow in that direction. I ask you today, tonight, to please vote rightly in the direction of making, giving these parents the right to put their child inside this kind of environment. My life is about kids. I work and live for kids. I'm a great advocate of kids. And I want us to understand this night that making urban education great is not by word of mouth. It's not by standing here and talking politics. What we should stand here and talk about is our kids and what will make our kids great. Property tax, mortgage and everything is not what is going to make our kids great. What is going to make our kids great is providing that environment to nourish them and make them learn and project them in the way of going to college, and not just by word of mouth. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thomas Africa EBN. You see, I don't have no time to be nice up here. I only come up here to tell the truth. Please don't clap it. Fact, when you take money from public schools and you fix charter schools, you take away stuff from the public schools. That's a fact. Fact, all kids are not educated. When you open up charter schools and just deal with charter schools, you do not educate all the kids in Newark. That's a fact. When you do not do that, you're not doing your job of educating all the kids in Newark. So please, do not come sit up here and tell me putting charter schools in public schools is going to educate all the kids in Newark. You're lying. Look, I'm not here to play these games, dog. I have no job. I have a college degree. I graduated from West Side. I live in Newark in the ghetto. When I live here, I go back to 175 First Street. I go back to the hood. I don't go back to a little nice house where I can open the refrigerator, we got food in there. I go back to hell. I go back to poverty. The problems in our schools are poverty-stricken areas. That's why the schools are like that. When you refuse to deal with those problems, you will continue to have these problems. I was watching a DVD like last weekend, and the same things we're talking about now, they were talking about in the 60s and the 70s. And the same dumb ideas you people have now were implemented back then. If you want education for all the kids in Newark, including your kids, then this is not going to do it. And if you're standing up here fighting for this crap, then you're selfish because you want your child to get an education while my child suffer. My child is on the honor roll. I stood outside in the hot sun holding camp for children in our neighborhood for free. Quadir was there. I was up there this morning. I'm black already. I'm getting blacker and blacker. I'm gonna be blue. I'm gonna be blue by the time the summer over. Nobody pay me, nobody feed me, nobody feed the kids. So if you sit up here and try to sell our public school away, I take it personal. And believe me, I'm gonna get niggas to come up here.
Good evening.
I led this prison for 5 years. We know gang affiliation. Keep trying this mess, Bob. I said it. I can say it. Keep trying.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Rippey, history teacher at Science Park High School.
Excuse me just a minute. I just need to make an announcement. Anyone who's driving a black BMC, Yukon, looks like GMC, could you please meet Mr. Freeman on the side? He needs to speak to you.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Rippey, history teacher at Science Park High School and vice chair of the Newark Education Workers Caucus. In the year 1867, a person named Karl Marx, who was a German scholar, philosopher, sociologist, historian, journalist, wrote a book called Capital. In that book, Capital, Karl Marx described a process which he called primitive accumulation. The process he described was one whereby governments took public things, whether it was public space, whether it was public necessity, whether it was a public service, and transferred those spaces, necessities, and services over to private entities. The first example he gave of that was what's called the Enclosure Acts in 1800s Europe, where in England, large landowners got the government to allow them to put fences along their land and kick off the poor peasants from their land. The peasants became landless laborers, they had to go to the cities, and they became the industrial proletariat of Western Europe. Meanwhile, while those landowners began to keep the land for themselves, which previously the peasants had been able to use. The private landowners benefited tremendously from this arrangement. The peasants clearly did not. The second example he gives of this is the Atlantic slave trade, where European governments combined with companies like the Royal English African Company to transfer over 11 million Africans from Africa to the Americas. Combination of government working with business to improve or to benefit some. What's happening here, I argue, is a case of primitive accumulation. If this board votes to turn public schools, which have been maintained for decades by the taxpayer money for public necessity services and space, over to any type of private entity, it is an example of primitive accumulation. The state of New Jersey, led by a state-appointed superintendent, will be turning over public spaces to private interests, not only giving them the physical building, but also the $18,000+ a year that comes with every student that goes to those schools. The parents, students, and teachers of Newark are feeling a lot like the peasants and enslaved Africans having our public spaces handed over to someone else for profit. But that is really what it's all about in capitalist economics: privatization and profit. The corporate interests that are financing the entire education reform movement, the Broad Foundation, the Bradley Foundation, and others that I mentioned 2 weeks ago, okay, they want two things. First, to destroy public workers' unions like our teachers' unions so they can have a low-wage, deprofessionalized labor force. And secondly, to privatize education and open it up to competition so that the free market could go in and they can eventually, even if not this minute, begin to profit. Because if ed reformers truly wanted to improve schools, they would recognize that we need to change society first. Some suggestions: number one, raise taxes on the rich and the powerful. Make Prudential pay some taxes. Secondly, use that money to create a national jobs program to provide jobs for the poor and unemployed in Newark. And finally, end poverty and racialized segregation, and suddenly the schools will get better.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker.
Good evening. Lyndon Brown, 220 South 6th Street, Newark, President, 13th Avenue School PTA, Essex County PTA, and a member of the Coalition for Effective Newark Public Schools. I'm here because, again, I've mentioned several months ago that we really need an impact study on how these renewed schools, how these co-locations, and how these closing of our schools is having an impact on our communities. So, you know, several years ago, we closed AVC, Academy of Vocational Careers. Those children were thrust out of their building and put on the streets, put in schools with no support services. We even had a student who was sent to Westside High School, and on the first day of school, he didn't even know the difference between the green light and the red light. He was hit by a car and went through months and months of rehabilitation. Now, I'm also looking at 15th Avenue. Last year, you closed that. 435 students you put out of that building for maybe 90 to 100 North Star students. You know what? You were supposed to send those 435 students to South 17th Street. How many did not go? 165 students unaccounted for. Only about 265 students showed up. Let's look at that, school board members. Let's look at that. Let's look at the fact that Barringer and Westside and some of these schools are already overcrowded, and now you want to close those academies that you opened to enhance student achievement, and now thrust those kids back into those schools with no support services. Overcrowded classrooms. It's a disgrace. We just need to make sure that we vote no tonight. I looked over the past several weeks when I went to some of these schools that were closing, and some of the renewed schools, there were textbooks, dictionaries thrown out, paper, pencils, chalk, markers, radio, CD players, thousands of dollars worth of stuff teachers just threw out because they were told they had to go on talent search, find another job. Parents are used to community schools where their children have the same teacher, and the students are looking forward to having the same teacher their siblings had. But that's not going to happen. You have kids bust out of their comfort zone, out of their communities. They cannot get involved in extracurricular activities, sports activities, because they got to make their way back home. We are in unsafe streets here. Nobody's looking at that. We need to look at the fact that we have United Hospital closed. Put those charter schools over there. Let them have their charter school campus over there. Fix that up. We need to look at the fact that we have school board members who need to get more involved in our schools and come and see what's going on. You have two failing schools you want to merge together because you want to put a charter school over in Dr. King. So you want to put two failing schools together, 13th Avenue School and Dr. King, and that's so unfair to these children. Parents are just saying no. They're exiting our new public school system because of that, because of the decisions that you are making. Enough is enough. And then you put these kids in a building with inexperienced and ineffective administrators. Enough is enough. Vote no tonight, board members. Just vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Brian Homan. I live at 25 Vaughn Drive in Newark. I'm a history teacher at American History High, and I'm a member of the New Caucus. Leasing city property to corporate charter schools is not an effective solution to the economic and educational struggles in Newark. And we really need to take a longer perspective to understand why Newark is struggling economically and educationally right now. Economically, the city has struggled with a structural deficit for 40 years. White and black middle-class people migrated to the suburbs, industry relocated to the south and overseas, corporations haven't paid their fair share of taxes for 4 decades, and federal funding for urban centers with high concentrations of poverty has completely dried up and has never been replaced. Lease money from corporate charters is a tiny drop in a large bucket that desperately needs to be fully replenished. What's being offered is a short-term solution that has absolutely no long-term vision. Educationally, corporate charters have not definitively shown to outperform public schools, despite having superior resources that most Newark public schools do not have. There's no studies that show corporate charter schools deliver a higher quality education than public schools. In fact, as a Stanford study recently showed, the average charter school performs no better, and some actually perform worse than normal average public schools. In essence, charter schools and the larger corporate education agenda is experimental in nature, and we're only experimenting on poor urban kids. The corporate education agenda is designed to maximize profit for corporations, and it has nothing to do with improving student achievement. All the energy, all the resources, perhaps some that Cammie's pouring into a text message right now, all that private money, all that public money should be sunk into our public schools so we can fix them for all students in Newark and not create a three-tiered system which is going to reproduce inequality in our society. Privatizing public schools, corporatizing public life in Newark is not a long-term vision. It's not going to bring back Newark. It's not going to revitalize Newark. It's not going to make the city vibrant again. We cannot put business interests over people's interests, which is what we're doing if we vote yes on this. You cannot put corporate interests over the interests of children, which is what you're going to do if you vote yes on this right now. Progressive forces in this city need to come together to demand real reform in Newark, like the ones that my colleague Brandon Rippey just mentioned. We need fully funded, fully resourced, fully staffed schools, and that requires political will, that requires courage, and we have to demand meaningful, comprehensive urban reform at the state and federal level. I hope that those on this board will gain that courage and gain that will and go fight for it in Trenton and Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, before the next speaker goes, we are at 45 minutes. However, everyone who is in line now will speak. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Pat Jones. I live 599B Bergen Street, Newark, New Jersey. Mrs. Cammie, I'm asking you as a superintendent to really be respectful and, you know, actually look at me, because I am a role model also in the Newark Public School. I graduated from Central High School, but I just want you to know that I am absolutely frustrated and for not having access to speak at the last Newark Public School meeting. After all the frustration of getting on the internet trying to put my name there, I was not able to get inside the building, and I went through the security and I was not. Okay. However, I'm here to let you know that I am part of the Secondary Council, and I spoke to you before about how we can possibly help the Newark Public School, and I will be talking to you in reference to that, especially for the high school. Mrs. Wilson knows me, Mr. Leone, he's one of our administrators with the Newark Public School, and I'm also I wanted to speak at that meeting about the 6 administrators at Eastside High School, the principal, Mr. Santos. It looks like he's trying to be discriminated against these black women in the Newark Public School. Dr. Thelma Jones is a good role model of the Newark Public School over 40 years. I have children and grandchildren that enter the Newark Public School.
Ms. Jones, excuse me, you will be allowed to continue, but just a warning about using people's names. It's just a warning, and also if you could please speak to the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, well, as far as the agenda is concerned, but when I came to speak to Mrs. Cammie in reference to Eastside High School, which the principal should have been gone, okay? Back 2 years ago, or possibly 3, I can get back on the agenda. You're hurting our Newark Public School kids here. You know, Johnny still can't read. You need to take that money, that $17 million that you have here for the charter schools, and utilize those buildings for children, for recreation and tutor programs. Okay, that's what we really need to do. Forget about the charter schools. I don't have anything against them, but I happen to be a PTA president at 3 different schools at one time. And I think that what you need to do is take that money and spend it on our Newark Public School kids. Because I am at the graduations when they're crying and can't go across the stage. That's what I'm asking you to do. Never mind what Cory Booker says, or Christie. Because, you know, Christie going to tell you what he want to tell you. His kids don't go to Newark Public School, okay? I have grandkids. My granddaughter just graduated from Science High School at a 4.083 GPS. And another thing is I want you to do is keep the people that live here in Newark, make sure they have a job. Because we went a long way with Ad Nisio, where he stole all the money from Newark. So I'm asking you to keep that money here for our kids. You might not know, but I'll tell you later.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next speaker.
Hi, good evening. Advisory board, faculty members, parents, and students. My name is Crystal, 37 Rutgers Drive. I'm here because I firmly believe that all public school students, charter or traditional public, should be able to access public school space. It is my understanding that Newark had enough space to educate 60,000 public school students at one point and did just that. With a decline in family size, enrollment, and other factors, Newark has an enrollment of approximately 40,000 students. With this valuable space remaining, it is my belief that all public school students should be able to go to school together. This is a smart use of resources, one which is of benefit to everyone in our community. We are here tonight to ask the advisory board to support all children in Newark and approve the leases before you. We've reached a critical moment. 300 students, many of whom have special needs just like my son, are waiting on the outcome of this vote to see where they will go to school next year. We all want our children challenged and not forgotten. We all want our children to be safe. These families are like all other families in Newark, and we ask that you support their choices and provide this opportunity to attain a truly excellent education. Our children cannot wait. I loved my district school growing up, but when you become a parent, things change. Children do not take a back seat to affiliations or to traditions. You do what is best for your child. Mine is that my children must be safe. Newark Public Schools have major work to do with regards to safety and instruction, but my children are here right now. They cannot wait for this new renovation that may or may not take place in the years to come. They need a change right now in real time. I demand that you recognize the need for quality education. Making these children wait while you sit here already educated is an attack on good, decent parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, ma'am, what is your last name? Your last name.
Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, board members. Harry Perriman, 1 Mapes Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. I'm here today just to say that, like many parents, I'm very concerned about the quality of education in the city of Newark. Now, years ago, I made a choice to first send my child to private school. It was costing me a lot of money. I couldn't afford it. And then, when I was lucky enough to get him into the charter school system, I took the opportunity and I chose to put my children in charter schools. Now, I want a couple apologies. I want to really apologize for the fact that people think that somehow my choice, my selection to send my child to a charter school is somehow taken away from the benefits of the Newark public school system. The last time I read, the charter schools were part of the Newark public school system. Now, the last statistics that I saw said that the charter schools only got 70%. But I'm not trying to make this, ladies and gentlemen, a debate over charter schools versus public school. So I just want to say that the focus is, in my opinion, and will always be, in my opinion, the benefit, the quality of education, the safety of the schools, of all the children in Newark. Now, as a matter of fact, you know, the sentiment is that somehow it's a charter school versus a public school, but I'll tell you this, what you don't know is some of the strongest advocates for the traditional public school system are some of my best friends, some of the people that I've worked with and have fought with in the trenches. I'm talking about Ms. Wilhelmina Holden, Mr. Julius Willen. These are not my adversary. We speak the same language. And I'll tell you this, in case you think it's a secret, it's not a secret. They are not necessarily all against the charter school. Maybe they take issue with the way things have come about, but I believe that everyone is first and foremost in favor of quality education, and that's why I chose to put my children in a charter school. Okay, for no other reason, not to really, you know, a lot of other people have chosen to take their children away from the public school because to them it was not adequate. I chose the best, and I'm here to tell you that I'm very satisfied with the quality of education that they have received. Very satisfied.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Donald Jackson, 79 Tracy Avenue, Newark, New Jersey, 07108. See, my problem is that if we had advocates like we have in the charter schools to fight for public schools, we wouldn't be in this situation. See, I've been doing this for a while. I can say for myself. I didn't just come out the woodworks like some people, okay? So I just wanted to clear the area with that. That's one of my first frustrations. One of my problems with charter schools is that it's all for profit gain. For corporate America, okay? You don't allow corporate America to come into the classroom, and that's what the issue is today, all right? If we're gonna fight for public school, let's fight for public school. Let's stop talking all this nonsense about bringing charter and public together, okay? Because it's two different things. Let's get that clear as well, okay? Now, in the year 2000, Big West Side separated and to go down to NAV or ninth grade or whatever this board wanted to call it because it was overcrowdedness. Earlier this school year, the principal at that building, West Side, sent students down the hill to Morton Street, which is now West Side NAV, because it was overcrowdedness. So now you're gonna close NAV and send those kids back up the hill because it's unoccupied. Well, make up your minds. The principal obviously don't know whether the school is too capacitated or not capacitated enough. What is going on in Newark Public Schools? When was the last time any of you guys walked into Westside High School and actually found out if it was overcrowded? Because it was. If that be the case, they wouldn't have sent the kids down to NAV. I don't understand what is going on. We're having too many debates and we're not getting to the real issues. We have a charter school now, Lady Liberty Academy, that the district is paying for those kids to go out of the city into Kearney because they don't have a school building, okay? Tax dollars going out of the city. Okay, that's an issue. Why we ain't talking about that? I'm disappointed, okay, because we want to show off, talk, all this game. We want to talk everything, but we don't want to put nothing to work, all right? And Superintendent Cammie Anderson, I must say I was disappointed because earlier in the school year, I told you and I gave you my contact information. I said we need reform. Excuse me, let me correct that. We need change. Yes, we do need change in Newark Public Schools, but the way that we going about it, the way that the governor's going about it, and the way that Mayor Media is going about it is not the answer, all right? So when you're ready to make some real change, call me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Go ahead, Lucius.
Board members, thank you. Lucius Jones, 224 Richelieu Terrace, Vice President United Parents Network, and the former president for Newark Transition Coalition, which was made up of various organizations around the city when we decided that we're going to have a new superintendent when Marion Bolden said she was going to retire. Board members, the thought that I want you to understand is that the state came in here and they talked about they're going to take over the district. And to reform the district, they decided that they're going to create a second option. Second option is charter. The only issue that I kind of have with charter is like a bus going to Atlantic City. If somebody cancels the charter, the bus doesn't go anywhere. And that's what's happening in the district, and it happened with the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church found that it could no longer afford to keep those buildings open. And those kids were then pushed out into the public school system. Some of us may want to believe that the kids in Newark that are sent from these transitioning schools or new schools are going to the schools that, the newer schools, or these 13th Avenue to Martin Luther King to 13th Avenue. But I'm here to tell you that they're not. They are changing their address, and they are moving into East Orange, and they are moving into Irvington. They are sneaking into South Orange. A lot of our kids are sneaking out of the district because the parents are really fed up. I know that for a fact, because I got a family member that lives in Newark. They had a child in the East Orange public school system. So I'm telling you that we need to be very cautious on how we dispose of schools, especially in a landlocked town like Newark, because land is very, very valuable. Once you sell it, give it away, you can't get it back no more. And see, when I talked to Karen Franzini from the Economic Development Authority, Karen Franzini was she learned a little bit about Newark when she built First Avenue School. We brought her here to Newark to show her that you need to do the things that Newark public schools need. But see, we can't do the things when we talk about thorough and efficient, and we understand under the Abbott decision what that means because we won the lawsuit, and then they turn that same decision into we're going to create multiple options. People have a choice just in this world to choose Burger King or McDonald's. But I ask the question sometimes, where's the beef? And that's what we have to sit down and talk about. There's no such thing in the Constitution of the state of New Jersey of a charter school. There's no such thing. Is it a way to lower the tax cost to the suburban district so they don't have to pay Newark their fair share while we have 8 square miles of the city of Newark occupied by the airport, which they pay very little taxes for? If we get the right amount of dollars for the airport, we don't need state dollars. The point here is that it comes down to funding. Ocean County, Monmouth County, they want reduction in their taxes. But they're saying that the only way they're going to get reduction in their taxes is that they're going to have to bring the charter school because they can educate kids for $8,000 and $5,000, and Newark Public Schools can educate them for much, much more. But the issue here is not whether or not children in public schools are getting a quality education. They are. I have kids, my daughter's honor roll, super honor roll. I have a daughter in college. They all went to Newark Public School. The issue comes down to who's watching the chicken coop. And that's where the problem comes in. The state of New Jersey runs this district. And if they run this district, they have run it into a rut. And now they want to turn back around and they want to say, close your schools, you need another option. That is wrong. So I would say that you cautiously look at what you're going to do up there and you project what's in the best interest of children today, tomorrow, and in the later future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next speaker.
My name is Brian Burwell. I live on 5254 Winans Avenue in Newark. And the reason why I'm standing up here today to talk to you is because I go to a KIPP school, and KIPP schools are being treated way better than charter schools because all the time, every day, we eat breakfast and then we go straight upstairs and start doing our word work. And then at the end of the day, we do something called free choice to celebrate all the hard work we did all day long.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Could both of the young people who spoke today just stand up for a second? Both of the young, okay, thank you guys very much. Next speaker.
It's unfortunate, Donna Jackson, 128 Smith Street, Newark, New Jersey state resident. It's unfortunate that we have to continue to embark on this fight because we don't all understand all of the pieces. Some of us got a little bit over here, some of us got a little bit over there, some of us have our own agenda, some of us done got new agendas since we got up there, some of us got new agendas out here, because if I'm not gonna work, then, you know, I'll succumb to it and I'll go work over at the charter. If I'm not gonna work over here at the charter, then I'll succumb and I'll go over there and work at Newark Public Schools. And unfortunately, because some people need to go to work every day to pay their bills, to take care of their children, this fight has gotten to the magnitude that it is. And there is no one person that is gonna call the meeting that is gonna stop this, because the bus is already out of the gate and the damage has already been done. Too many lies have been put out in the community, not correct information. And because we don't understand the pivotal point that we are at right now in Newark, New Jersey, this is going to get worse as September comes. Because what this has become now is charter school, most parents working, versus public schools, most of those parents not working. Because I don't care what they say in terms of a lottery, when they looking at that application, if Shaquita mama ain't working, Shaquita ain't getting in that lottery. I don't care what nobody tell me. I know better. Now, we're gonna go back and forth with that, and we're not gonna go back and forth with that right now, because Newark Public Schools, if you were gonna be so transparent, which I wish you guys would eventually be, you need to tell publicly how many kids per year from the charter schools come back into Newark Public Schools without the money. Please tell them that. Hold on. And let them know that they're coming back without the money. Charter school parents do not believe that. They don't believe that when these kids, they really think that the money follow the kid. Please, somebody up there that got the guts tonight, please tell these folks the truth, that when that kid comes back, anytime after October the 15th, that check does not come back to whatever school they go. Let's say a kid, now let me really mess y'all charter school parents up. Let's say the kid leaves Team Academy and go to North Star. Guess what? You know why North Star won't take them to September? Because ain't no money coming. Newark Public Schools has to take the kid. Do you know why your children can't transfer in the middle of the year, y'all? Because there's no money there. So now let's look at these 18-year, 15-year, and 20-year leases. Parents, if we're talking about all the kids, then let's talk about all the kids. The New Jersey Economic Development Authority is issuing these bonds that our children's children gonna have to pay, y'all. Let's be clear. Newark Public Schools was due 40 new schools and 38 major renovations. But now all of a sudden, because we have gotten, and I'll close with this, now all of a sudden, because we've come up with this new gimmick for corporate America to get money, now Newark Public Schools not gonna get no new schools, and all the charter schools where now Team Academy is already, because they done divided into 3 different corporations, is already up to $52 million, thus the new school on Clifton. And no problem with that, but where's the new building for Newark Public Schools? See, if we're gonna do this, let's do it even, let's do it right, let's do it the way it's supposed to be done. Cammie, you're right. We all holler at you and argue, and I bet I'll be your biggest adversary forever. But I've been doing this 25 years, so I got street cred. You got to get yours. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you're going to do this evenly, Cammie, I just want you to look at one last thing, because this affects my mother personally. You gave my mother an elimination of position letter at Morton Street. And you're now sending Morton Street up the west side. You have now discovered with your friend at West Side that there's not enough space up at West Side for now them 400 kids to go up there. So now we got to go back and get into a lease agreement with the people we done leased the building to. And the principal was there Saturday, Cammie, and this is my last concern. I asked the young man, where are the kids coming from that are going to the new STEM school that fared in New York that's now coming over here? He said the kids is coming from Jersey City, Hillside, Montclair, West Orange, Orange, East Orange, Irvington, Nutley, and Belleville. The only question I got for you, Cammie, is who, right now, because we do not have an intra-district agreement, who will be paying for all of the kids that attend the charter schools that don't live here in Newark? Because you're raping both systems, in my opinion.
Ms. Jackson, if you could please finish your sentence.
I am finished. I need to know who, because the principal himself, as I was packing up my mother's stuff, I interrogated that man for 45 minutes. And I will make somebody tell me what I need to know. He said over 150 of those 300 students going in that building are from out of district.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Superintendent Anderson, can you tell me who will pay for those 150 kids? Is that going to ride off the backs of the Newark taxpayer, or is Krispy Kreme going to send you a check?
Thank you very much. Before we move into the voting section, can we have order, please? Before we move into the voting section of our agenda, Dr. McCreary would like to make a statement.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chairperson Richardson. I would like to read into record a statement in which I provided the district earlier this afternoon. In being elected to the Newark Public Schools Advisory Board, I clearly understand my duty and responsibility is to the entire community, and thus my board decision should be based on what is in the best interest of the students as well as the greater Newark community at large. From this perspective, I will recuse myself from voting and negotiations in which my vote can be seen as benefiting charter or district over charter. As a board member, I have a fiduciary responsibility to the community which elected me, and not just to my own personal or professional relationships. It is of paramount importance that my loyalty to the position and the people I serve are not divided, so that I can continue to work as a true and honest broker on behalf of the district as a whole. So, given the fact that I'm a current employee of Teen Charter Schools, was once recently an employee of North Star Charter Schools, and have other personal and professional relationships with other charter schools requesting short and long-term space from the district, I feel it is best to recuse myself and my vote from the least decisions this evening in order to avoid both real or perceived conflict of interest on my behalf. Please accept this letter as a way of providing greater transparency and commitment in theory and practice to my openness in administrative, organizational, and community processes. It is my sincere hope that the district and community both understand and thus accepts my position this evening.
Thank you, Dr. McCreary. We're gonna ask. I don't have the whole thing in front of me. I need to have each one in front of me.
No, you don't have to. Just say the first line of the short-term lease.
Okay.
Newark Legacy of Madison. Just say
Order, please. So I need to ask for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to entertain a motion on the resolution approving the lease of space at Madison School to Newark Legacy Charter School.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Jeffries. Is there a second? Ms. Matthias.
Madam Chair, can I make a statement before we vote? Because we have discussion on the motion.
Yes.
A couple things. I personally view these as win-win myself, and the reason or the reasons why I feel these are win-win, both for the district as well as for the public charter schools, are the following. First, I want to say personally that I understand fully the passion, I understand fully the emotion, I understand fully the concern, and I think the fact that there's so much emotion. I feel the fact that there's so much emotion surrounding these issues really suggests to us as a board, as a district, we have more work to do in terms of engaging the community to provide accurate information about these decisions. As I did last year, I will personally recuse myself from the Team Academy vote, which is what I did.
Allow the board member to talk, please.
Which is what I did last year, based on the fact that my children attend Team Academy. And I would actually like, on the other leases, I will vote. And I take. Madam Chair, can we have order, please?
There is a readiness on the part of the board to hear each other out and to move forward with the vote. We would like to do it in the presence of the public. That is our desire. But we do have to move forward with this today. We ask for your cooperation so that we can move forward with the business of the evening. Thank you.
And I take very seriously conflicts and ethics. I'd actually like the attorney for the board to raise with the public so they understand, because the perception of conflicts, the perception of unethical activity can undermine the integrity of this board. I take that very seriously, not only for my own personal ethics, but the ethics of the board, and also as we go through the local control process, to the extent there's board members acting in unethical ways, we will never get out of state takeover. So I really would like the counsel for the district to share the opinion he shared with me with respect to conflicts for people who are a parent of a child at a public charter school.
There is an advisory opinion that says that a parent of a child in a charter school is allowed to vote on the charter school, in that it's not a special privilege to his or her daughter. That is true, Mr. Jeffries, yes.
Right, but nonetheless, even though I technically could vote on the Team Academy, at least I will not, because I actually think that that would be too much of a perception issue. But with that said, I'm going to just make my quick statement. I'm going to be quiet. There's basically 5 reasons I think this is win-win, because that's really how I view this. And I first view this as a win for the district. We have to be very clear. We have very severe economic pressure on our district right now. The state, for the second time in 3 years, has changed the funding formula in a way that's going to reduce money for urban districts, including Newark. 2 years ago, I was very blessed as the chair of this board to sue the state that brought back over $30 million. And if you look at the presentation you saw today, if you look at the presentation today, over $20 million of that money will actually help us reduce layoffs for the fiscal year 2013. I actually personally think we're going to need to sue the state again because it looks like the government. Madam Chair, can I have order, please?
Yes, you can have order, but I would ask you to please, if you could.
Yeah, I'm going to get there, but I would.
Let's respect the speaker, please.
The people of Newark elected me to speak, and I plan to speak tonight. So I really would like peace. I really would like order. So the reasons I view this as win-win, is we've had a deficit for the last several years. We've had layoffs every year for the last several years. We anticipate another deficit next year. We need all the resources we can get. We need these resources so we can invest in programs within the district to improve the quality of education in the district so we can get families back. We've had declining enrollment for several years. If we don't get it together and get families to choose Newark Public Schools, this district will be radically different and won't be here. We got to get families back. And what are we doing with these resources? And I want to make sure people understand this. And this is why I think all of us as board members in the district have to do more work to get good information out to the people, because it's clear to me we don't have enough accurate information in the hands of the people. What are we doing with these resources? We're extending the school day at Newark Public Schools. We're adding adult education at Newark Public Schools so that the parents can receive training, so that the parents can better work with their own children. We're adding the social services wraparounds that we know. I really would like to speak, Madam Chair. I'll be finished if I can.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can we please have order and quiet? Yes, you. Thank you. This is your first warning. Well, what is your name? Mr. Harris, my name is Valerie Wilson.
We're going to have to make a decision whether we can do this in the public or we cannot. The only way we can do this in the public is if there is order in the audience.
I can be real quick if I can just finish. We're using these resources. We're using these resources to invest in Newark Public Schools programs, Eagle Academy, Bard Early College. These are Newark Public School programs, expanding spaces at science, expanding space at arts, expanding space at American history, extending the school day at over 20 schools, adding adult education, adding social services wraparounds, adding counseling services that we know that our kids need, adding 21st century learning so our kids have access to technology in our schools. We need this money so that we can invest in the district in programs that can persuade families to come back. That's one. Two, the district is severely under-enrolled, severely under capacity. If we knock the leases down, the space is going to sit there empty. We have to pay to maintain the space. So not only do we not get the money coming in, we got to pay money out for space we're not using. According to the numbers we got tonight, even after the leases, there will be over 6,000 empty spaces that we could use for growth within the district. It's also very important to understand that 3 of the leases are short-term. 3 of the leases are short-term, so that means they're 2-year leases. If, as we grow, even though we still have 6,000 spaces to grow in, separate from these leases, even with these short-term leases, we can get the space back in 2 years if we grow in such a way that we need the space. Third, what's very important is we have to understand that these charter schools are public schools. We've heard a lot of rhetoric. About for-profit corporations. We've heard absurd comparisons to the slave trade, which is just frankly ridiculous, which is frankly absurd, and they discredit those who would have that come out of their mouth. But these are public schools. These are public schools regulated by the state of New Jersey, regulated by the Department of Education. And they're educating Newark children. I really would just like to finish. I can finish.
Mr. Jeffries, I do understand, but perhaps if you could direct, do you have any questions, or if there's something that would be helpful to us?
No, I'm making a statement because I want the people who elect me to know why I'm voting. That's all.
I understand
and I think
that.
I have the right. I think I have the right to take 3 minutes just to explain.
Does this address the item that is actually on the table now that we have moved and seconded?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, which is the particular lease of Newark Legacy and Madison Avenue?
Yes,
Are we addressing that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Chair. Absolutely. I think it's very important as we make these votes for people to understand these are public schools serving Newark children. These children aren't parachuted out of the suburbs. These are Newark babies. These are parents who just want the best for their kids. And we have the space we're not using. The space will just sit there empty. It will cost us money. We have to lay off more people to subsidize space we're not using. Instead, we can rent the space, use the money to reinvest in our program. And the final point is this. We spend a lot of time talking about evening the playing field between the district schools and the public charter schools. And what the superintendent has done through these proposals, I think, is very important to make sure that the public charter schools serve comparable proportion of kids with special needs, to make sure they serve comparable proportion of kids who speak English as a second language. And the final point I'm going to make is this, is the bottom line is the policy we have, I'm going to speak. You can boo all you want. The people of Newark elected me to be here, and I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak tonight.
Excuse me, Mr.
And a whole lot of them did.
Mr.
And a whole lot of them did. So I'm going to speak tonight. I'm going to speak tonight. This is my last point.
Mr. Jeffries, you do have the right to speak, but I would just like to ask you not to go back and forth with the audience.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry about that. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry about that. Last point I'm making is this. Built into our policy is effectiveness, right? And the only charter schools that can access this space, which we're not using anyway, are those charters that can demonstrate to the district either because they've already effectively educated Newark children or that they have a strong case that they can do so in the future. And at the end of the day, every decision I'm making where I can look at myself in the mirror and feel very proud of it is this providing better educational opportunities for Newark children? And the reality is this, and I'm going to close on this, the reality is this, and I say this as somebody from a family that's been in Newark 100 years, right? This is my community, right? This is my community, and I've been here before some of these folks coming up to the mic talking about the slave trade, right? But this is the reality. Reality is this. For 30 years, we've had a declining enrollment because we haven't been effectively educating these kids. The reason we have so much space is because the parents are pulling their children out. They're pulling their children out because we haven't gotten the job done. And so if we don't invest in these programs, if we don't improve what we do by extending the day, working with proven models, which is what we're doing through these proposals, if we don't improve what we have, they're going to continue to leave, and we're not going to be able to survive as a district. So I'm absolutely supporting these leases. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. The motion has been made and seconded.
These are the votes on a short-term lease to Newark Legacy for the Madison Avenue building. It's moved by Jeffries, second by Matthias. Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
No.
Dr. Lamore?
No.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
Ms. Matthias?
No.
Dr. McCreary?
Abstain.
Ms. Spate?
No.
Ms. Bashko-Richardson?
No. I would like to entertain a motion for the resolution approving the lease of Dr. Martin Luther King Junior School to North Star Academy Charter School of Newark.
Motion.
Second. Moved by Mr. Lamore. Second. Who second? Spade. Ms. Spade.
These are the votes for the short-term lease to North Star for MLK, moved by Lamore, second by Ms. Spate. Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
No.
Dr. Lamore?
No.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
Ms. Matthias?
No.
Dr. McCreary?
Abstain.
Ms. Spate?
No.
Ms. Bashko-Richardson?
No. I would like to entertain a motion on the resolution approving the lease of space at Burnett Street School to Paulo Freire Charter School.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to say this one, I may have a conflict of interest, so therefore I'll remove myself, vote from voting on this school.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Mr. Kenny, second. Ms. Matthias.
This is the motion for the short-term lease to Paul Ferrer for Burnett Street, moved by Kenny, second by Matthias. Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Dr. Lamore?
No.
Mr. Lewis?
Abstain.
Dr. McCreary?
Abstain.
Ms. Matthias?
Yes.
Ms. Spate?
Yes.
Ms. Bashko-Richardson?
Yes.
That passes. 5 yes, 1 no, 2 abstain.
I'd like to entertain a resolution approving the long-term lease of Westside NAF Academy to 100 Legacy Academy Charter School. Is there a motion?
Motion. Motion.
Okay, Ms. Spade, is there a second?
Second.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question on that one, for this one.
Mr. Lewis, second. Yes.
I would just like confirmation. You know, we talked earlier about making sure that there's language in that lease, because this is a new school. Can you just confirm that for me, if there's language that allows us to get out of that lease to the extent they have issues with enrollment or to the extent they have performance issues in terms of educating kids?
The language included in that lease says, throughout the life of the lease, tenant, in the reasonable determination to be made by the State District Superintendent, must comply at all times during the term with all conditions set forth in tenant's charter and all requirements set forth in NJSA 18A:36A-1, NJAC 6A11(1.1), and shall provide landlord with all annual reports submitted pursuant to NJAC 6A:11(2.2), and all renewal applications submitted pursuant to NJAC 6A:11(2.3. As indicated in our discussion during the presentation, you asked about enrollment, and I indicated that based on the statement that determination will be made by the State District Superintendent, enrollment would be one of the factors that the superintendent would consider.
seconded?
Yes, we do. This is the vote on the long-term lease regarding Westside NAF facility to 100 Legacy. It was moved by Spade, seconded by Mr. Lewis. Mr. Jeffries?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
No.
Dr. Lamore?
No.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
Ms. Matias?
No.
Dr. McCreary?
Abstain.
Ms. Spate?
No.
Ms. Bashko-Richardson?
No. And the final resolution, I would like to entertain a motion on the resolution approving long-term lease of 18th Avenue School to the Team Academy Charter School Incorporated or its affiliate.
Motion.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Lamore? Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Lewis?
Madam Chair, I would just like the record to reflect that I'm recused altogether from this vote, so I can't even abstain.
You're abstaining, right? Yeah.
I'm recused, which means I don't, I'm recused, I'm not even counting.
So this is the, ready to proceed to vote?
Yes.
All right, so we'll proceed to vote on a long-term lease of 18th Avenue to Team Academy. Mr. Jeffries, I have you as recorded, so Mr. Kenny?
No.
Dr. Lamore?
No.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
Ms. Matias?
No.
Dr. McCreary?
Abstain.
Ms. Spate?
No.
Ms. Bashko-Richardson?
No. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion.
Motion, second?
Second.
All in favor?